Check, check. Check one. Check one.
Good evening, folks. My name is Thomas Pence. I'm a public information officer here with Great Basin Team 3. Feel free to get settled in and we will begin. Today, we are going to keep our meeting to about 1 hour. So with that, please hold all questions until the end. Number of speakers lined up, holding those questions will allow us to get through. Following the end of those speakers, we'll have an open period for ask their questions. Do not want to ask your questions in front of a group. Please feel free to hold them. We'll be around at the end to answer anything you have. Finally, we'll begin with a couple statistics. Currently, the Monroe Canyon Fire is at 73,721 acres. It's 90% contained, and we have 399 personnel. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the weather.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Dave Mannion. I'm the incident meteorologist trainee here for the Monroe Canyon Fire. Behind me is a map of precipitation estimates that we've seen fall across our fire. That white outline there is the perimeter of the fire. It's been very wet, which is not very conducive to fire, which is pretty good. The moisture, the humidity has all been working in our favor to help kind of keep the fire down. What has been challenging with the rainfall is it's just kind of generally been dampening the operational efforts in the recovery. In green is pretty much anything that's over half an inch of rainfall that we've received in the area over the last 5 days. There's a pretty notable swath across that middle portion of the fire and then also the southern portion of the fire. On the next slide, you'll see what this kind of rainfall can do to an area that has just received a significant amount of burning. Right here, if anyone's been up through Monroe Canyon, knows that this is right around the gate of the entrance to the canyon. This is a little dam feature that they've got there. It might be a little hard to tell, but there's a bit of brown caking. Thank you for the laser pointer. Some brown caking there on that concrete. Now what happens when you can have a significant amount of rainfall fall on that burn, you get that water running off significantly faster than you could if you just had normal ground. That burned ground contains ash, mud, and other debris that can't really absorb the water like normal ground can, especially when there's vegetation. So not only are we talking about an accelerated risk of flash flooding when you have heavy rainfall, but that water coming down the mountainside is also going to bring that mud, that ash and debris, what we call debris flows. We only got about a half an inch of rainfall that feeds part of this creek the other day. I took this picture on Monday when I was out in the field. So we received that rainfall on Sunday. This was the next day. So a good 12, 24 hours had passed, and we were still seeing a good amount of flow through that creek. And that was about 4 or 5 feet of water rise right in that channel. So be very cognizant that even after, maybe even a year or two after we're all done here, that risk of flash flooding and debris flows can still occur if we receive a significant amount of precipitation in a short amount of time. So whenever anyone happens to be traversing around those mountain roads that have switchbacks with drainages that might flow underneath the roadways, be mindful that there's a chance if there's heavy rainfall that those could get washed out and be impassable with debris and mud. On a lighter note, the next slide here is the forecast for the next couple of days. We've lost that rainfall, that monsoonal moisture is pushing out now over the next couple of days. We could still have a couple scattered showers and thunderstorms possible, just like we did today on tomorrow and on Friday. As we get into the weekend, much nicer conditions. Humidity will begin to fall a little bit. We get back down to about 20 to 19% by the beginning part of next week, but no winds, which is good, and no rainfall, which should continue to help the operational effort. Thank you, everyone. Up next, we'll have Dan with operations.
Good evening, Dan Cather, Operations Sections Chief. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm going to bounce off the stage just a little bit here. So, we look at the footprint of the fire. You guys have lived it. You guys have eaten it, smelt it daily. Okay. I wasn't here on the first round. I'm here. This is my first time on this fire. But you look at the footprint. I know, everyone's like, we got to get up in there. We've got a lot of stuff we want to go do. It's recreation time. It's hunting time. It's wood gathering time. Let's go to the suppression slide, please. So this here is representation. I'll just focus on this bottom piece for a minute here. This is representation of like dozer line, amount of dozer line we have in here. This is all dozer line. Okay, it's green right now because we've been able to go in there with heavy equipment, and we're looking at excavators. We're looking at feller bunchers. What we're trying to do is to be able to mitigate as many hazards that are out there. And when I'm talking about hazards, we're talking about trees that are going to come down. It could be burned up trees, it could be half burned up trees. It could even be the live trees. Why would the live trees come down? Is because we burned away of all the vegetation underneath them. And so now that root soil is a little bit loose. We add the water to it, they're going to come down. So, we're doing a lot of work. We're out here. We've got a lot of pieces of equipment. If I remember my count for today, we have 23 pieces of heavy metal on this fire. Okay, going around, we're working dozer lines, we're working the hand lines, and then we have falling mods. And the falling mods are going in, and we're going around the private end holdings, the structures, and we're trying to reduce or limit as many hazard trees that could be impacted. Okay, we're not going to get everything. We will never get everything, but we're trying to eliminate as many hazards as we can identify on the primary routes driving in to the private lands, around the private structures, and all the main roads being able to access the top of the hill, top of the mountain. Along with that, just like Dave was saying, we get any moisture. There's nothing that's going to hold some of those slopes without some work. And so I know people are anxious; they want to get in there. I'd like to be able to say, you know what, we're 100%. Let's get you guys back in, but we're not there. You can see there's a lot of color on this map. We're doing our daily diligence to get in there and to make sure we find all the dozer line, all the hand line, all the recognizable hazard trees we can find, the roads, and try to repair and make sure we have stuff cleaned up and secure. That, you know, the stuff that we've created, we're trying to make sure that we've cleaned up, modified, fixed. We want to leave you, the custodians, you know, that's your home, that's your area of play, that's where we all like to go. But we want to leave a safe product. We want to be able to have you guys be able to go back and enjoy the landscape. Now, when I say enjoy the landscape, yes, I know a lot of this area burned up. Okay? We've changed the looks. Mother Nature has changed the looks with fire, everything. But with that, our crews, you know, we're working countless hours, heavy equipment, hiking the lines. I can't tell you how many miles, man miles, across this landscape we've put in. When we got here, we were at 45 days. So that means we've had 45 days worth of I think we're down to 400 people right now. And I think the max we've had is around 1,200 individuals on this fire. So imagine 1,200 individuals, 16 hours a day, trying to do, you know, to work on this incident, on the fire. There's a lot of man hours. And with those man hours, what we're trying to do is mitigate, and we will never eliminate, but we're trying to mitigate the issues, the hazard trees, make sure that we have safe roads, safe trails that you, the public, and everyone can go back in and be able to recreate on. Around the structures, we're doing what we can to make sure the structures that are there, that you're safe to go back in. That when the sheriff comes up with the plan and tells you when it's time to be able to go back and repopulate, that you have a safe travel. The roadways going in are safe. And when you get to your property, driving into your, you know, the driveway and around your the private in holdings, that you can feel safe. Okay, so we're doing, you know, the best we can to make sure we're eliminating those hazards. So, like I said, we've got a great big footprint here, a lot of acreage, you know, 73,000 acres. We've moved a lot of dirt. We've, you know, lost a lot of water in a lot of the reservoirs, trying to suppress this. The rains, yeah, the moisture is great. The fire activity, very, very minimal activity. Are we going to say the fire is 100% out? No. There's still going to be smoke. You're going to still find areas where there's going to be logs that are still burning. You might find areas that there's some heat. Maybe there's a stump hole. There's going to be heat in there. There's going to be stuff that's going to be out there until it snows. Okay. When we leave, yes, this outside perimeter is going to be good, but there might be some stuff, you know, right in the very middle in some of these pockets where we just can't get into. Okay. There's areas that we haven't been able to put people in because there's so many trees and snags. We'd have to cut all the trees down just to get in there to put that heat out. Okay, so the stuff in the middle, we're not worried about it, but you will see some smoke. These next few days, like the weather was saying, what Dave was saying, it's going to get a little bit warmer. We might see some smoke, but we feel confident with what we have. And the crews have done a fabulous job with hand line, by hand, with mechanized equipment, ground truthing, making sure that we've cleaned up and rehabbed as much of that line as we have found, to make sure that our actions on the landscape have been, you know, cleaned up and remedied. Along with that, it was like today, we had guys out there with cedars, going down the dozer line before we covered up the dozer line. So we're getting some vegetation, some seed on the ground. So we're doing what we can to return the landscape as close as we can to being safe, normal, and a place for you guys to go back, to repopulate and enjoy. with that, we'll have questions at the end, but I just wanted to just give you, we're working diligently, make sure that um, when the sheriff gives you guys the green light to be able to go back into your properties, that you can do it safely. Thank you. Bill.
All right. Uh, so, oh, sure. Okay. Um, we've had a few changes since our last public meeting, and most of that came in the form of rain. That kind of put a damper on what our plans were to happen with this. So we were hoping to get everybody in this weekend. That's not going to happen. Right now, we're looking uh, Guard Station and Maggleby's will be starting to repopulate on Friday. We'll lift those evacuation orders for those two areas. The rest of them are going to be next week, and I'll know better Friday on what days those will be next week that we start to populate those areas. But on that, I have contacted, oh, that's better. I've contacted everybody that I have on my list for Maggleby's and the guard station. Would you put up my contact slide there? And then if you haven't heard from me today, or if you haven't gotten a message from me today, give me a call. Let me know where you're at and what you've got going, and then we can get you your placards and that. To get your placards, you need to come down to the sheriff's office. I know most of these properties have several people attached to them. So talk amongst yourselves who's going to be the representative for that, and have them contact me, get on my list, come in on Friday for these two areas, and we'll get your placards for you. You're going to need to give her your name, a contact number, and your parcel number for your property, not your address. It's got to be your parcel number. You can get that off of your tax papers or on there, or if you don't have that, Cal Topo, Onyx, you can find them on there also. So come in with that information. We can get those set up for you and then start getting you back in. But sounds like most of them are going to be hopefully before next weekend. That's what we're planning for. That's what these guys are shooting for, is to get everybody back in before they time out is what their goal is. So we're working heavily at that to get everybody back in and be able to go back in and enjoy it for a little bit before snow starts to fly. So one change on there, Big Lake and Long Flat area was going to be our third phase. That's kind of dropped down a little bit. So it's going to be our fourth or fifth phase, depending on what happens over the next week. So it'll be, the next phase will most likely be Monroe Meadows, Manning Meadows. Will probably be our next phase. Then we'll move into Elk Country and then into Big Lake and Long Flat. So I'll be around if there's any questions, and we'll turn it over to Mike.
Hey, good evening, folks. Mike Melton with Utah Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. Talking about all these hazards, I kind of want to give you a heads up as to what you're looking for. Oh, and a falling module is a group of individuals with chainsaws that are falling trees and taking care of those hazard trees for you. So we're looking at snags. Snag is a dead tree that's standing there still and has the potential to come down if you don't know what a snag is. Fire weakened trees can be silent killers. All it takes is a little bit of wind. The feeder roots, with as dry as things are, the fire can penetrate down into the soil layer or to the soil layer through the organic layer that's sitting there on top and weaken those trees. And so want to caution you when you're out there walking around during a wind event, that those things can come down without any warning at all. So that's why we're being so diligent with a lot of this stuff. Um, a tree, a dead tree, and then the duration of the fire, that the fire can actually go subterranean and get down underneath the soil layer and leave a hole that you can be walking by. It doesn't look like anything's in there. You can step in that hole and it can still be extremely hot down in there. Or it's just a tripping hazard where you could break a leg, break an ankle real easy in one of those things there. Um, Other things that we're looking for, and Matt Christensen, how many of you folks know Matt? A lot of you, practically all of you. Okay. So Matt is part of this incident management team. He's a safety officer, and he's been our point man going into these different communities. He knows them really well, and looking for these hazards and then getting the appropriate equipment out there to take care of it. So we're also looking for broken treetops, branches that are hanging up in there. And this can be from falling other trees, or when we were in suppression, bucket drops coming from helicopters can also break the tops of those trees out. So we're looking for an awful lot of different things that can be a problem. An additional thing is just the traffic with the 300 people we still have up there. I think uh, Dan said it was 17 pieces of equipment. There's a lot of moving parts out there, folks. So that's a lot of what these delays are about, and trying to keep those conflicts down. Now, I'll shift gears. Forestry Fire and State Lands is planning to meet with some loggers and some representatives from some the local mills for a field trip next Wednesday to try and look at what can be done with some of that timber that's burnt on your properties. So that's going to occur, like I said, next Wednesday. Be looking for what kind of salvage can occur there, and then you'll see up here we're our area foresters with a division. Justin Short and Melissa Hart will be your contacts for private land, logging advice, tree health, reforestation, and other issues like that. So please take a look at this. If you want to get into their program and get advice from these foresters, then please send Justin an email. Thanks so much. And Jason Kling from the forest.
Good afternoon, everyone. Most of you know me. I'm Jason Kling. I'm with the Fish Lake National Forest. I was just looking at my calendar. July 13th is a day I'm not going to forget. 46 days ago. Guys, we've been at this for 46 days. I don't know how many public meetings we've had, how many cooperator meetings we have. We're on our 4th incident management team. It's not super often that you see the same incident management team come back to the same fire twice. And so that's what you get when you have one of these long duration fires like we're experiencing here. Back on that Sunday afternoon, all it took was one spark on a hot, dry day and some heavy timber. And as you know, that fire grew really fast, really big, really fast. And so here we are 46 days later, and we're still next several years until this fire in this area has time to recover. So appreciate your patience and appreciate your working there in the next, however long it takes them, and then we'll try to get back to some normal for us as local folks. But there's just a couple of things I wanted to touch on. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about our closure area so much of the national forest on the Monroe is, closed, has been closed. Um, and it'll stay closed for a little bit longer, but here soon, we're hopeful, soon in the next week or so, um, as some of this repair work starts to wrap up, that we'll be able to shrink that closure down and make it a little bit smaller. We're hopeful that, in the next week or so, we'll be able to shrink it down to a size that's pretty similar to the fire footprint. They don't have it up behind me, but, the 73,000 acre footprint, be able to shrink it down to roughly what we would refer to as the black area. Recognizing that not all 73,000 acres have burned, but a large portion of it has. And so as soon as we can reduce that and get you back in on the national forest, we'll do that. And we feel like we're getting close. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to happen, but hopefully sometime next week we'll be able to make a change there. So stay tuned on that. As we meet again next week, I'll have another update for you. And then the other thing I just wanted to talk about was within the Forest Service, we have what we call a BEAR team. So BEAR is an acronym, BAER. So not like the critter, not like the animal, the bear, but this stands for a Burned Area Emergency Response Team. And so pretty common, after you have a wildfire like this, we'll bring in a BEAR team that'll do an assessment and look at impacts from the fire, look at potential flooding concerns, and then they'll recommend emergency actions that need to be taken here very, very soon to be able to help minimize impacts that could occur from a next big heavy rainstorm. And so we had a bear team in town for a little over a week. They spent a lot of time in the field, and I'm happy to share that they finished their assessment. They actually put together a report for us, gave me a briefing on it yesterday. And on the National Forest side, they identified several projects that they felt like would be worth their time and worth the money to get done here very, very soon. So, for example, Monroe Canyon. We know that Monroe Canyon, is an area of concern. I'm sure many of you have all been up Monroe Canyon. You've been to Monrovian Park. You've driven up Monroe Canyon to Mud Flat and Fitzgerald Park and all the way up to the peak, right? Great view up at the peak. And so, as you're going up that steep, windy switchback road, there's a variety of culverts in there on some of those switchbacks. And some of those culverts are not the appropriate size that you would need to be able to handle the runoff that could occur within this burn area now that you don't have all of that vegetation up there. And so it happens often where you get a culvert that plugs and then that water isn't able to go through the pipe. And so it backs up and eventually it'll go over the top of the road. And then you end up with that road washing out and it can lead to a lot of damage really fast. And so some of the work that we're looking at is either removing those culverts short term so that that water can flow right over the top of the road, or in some cases, upgrading the size of those culverts to try to protect those roads. Down at the bottom, we've got a couple bridges that you're familiar with. Those bridges, you'd be amazed at how high the water can come. And, and if that water level raises and you get a bunch of debris and then it catches on the bottom of the bridge. And then once again, you get all of that debris that's backing up. Those bridges can become impacted and we've seen them wash out. And so the bear teams recommended some treatments in terms of armoring the footers. If you park at Monrovian and you walk up the foot trail, there's a footbridge even that crosses the creek there. It's a popular spot for senior photos and wedding photos, and people love to go up there and take pictures on the footbridge. That footbridge is not the best designed footbridge, and so it would not take much to impact that footbridge. And so we're going to need to do some work there. Um, and I'm just talking about on the national forest. There's lots of other emergency work that um, can be occurring on other land ownerships, whether it's a BLM, state, private, city. And so I'm just reporting on the Forest Service piece, but there's a lot of other agencies and folks that have been working hand in hand with us to identify what projects need to occur on those adjacent lands short terms. So start thinking about some of the bear um, and they're going to do. That's short term stuff. Now, longer term, we know that there's a lot of other things up on that mountain that are going to need to be fixed. So, for example, we've got for our grazing ranchers permit we run livestock on the mountain, whether it's cows or sheep. There's fences up there that have burned need to be replaced. There's water lines that they were pulling water out of a spring, piping it across to a trough where those livestock could then drink out of that. That have burned up, and so there's water lines that need to be repaired. On the recreation side, we've got that burned that are going to need to be replaced, and then of course just thousands and thousands of acres of reseeding. Typically, we'll come in after that very first fall or the following spring, and with aircraft the vegetation just to help speed that recovery. Um, there's a timing thing there with when we put that seed down so that it can be successful the spring. If we put it down, we put that seeding down today, and then we get a rainstorm tomorrow, all that seed is going to get washed away as well. So, and there's some planning and you got to be strategic with the kind of seed you put down and when you put it. But those are all things that, I talked about, we're going to be dealing with this for the next couple of years as a Forest Service. Those are things we're going to be working on the next several years, and just a lot of work to still do even after the incident management team leaves. So with that, yeah. Afterwards, if you've got questions about closure area, or you've got questions about bear and some of this recovery and all of the work that we're planning to do to fix things and put things back together, catch up with me afterwards. With that, we'll turn the mic over to our incident commander.
Thanks, Jason. So I was reminded the last time that our team did a public meeting here was exactly a month. Was it a month? Is that right? So, but a lot different condition. We had a lot of fire that was biting at us, and had a lot of issues that were going on. Don't you love smart watches that shut off? So, you know, sometimes it'd be nice to go back to a Timex, because it doesn't talk to you. Anyway, we yeah, this is just the next phase, and what everybody's explained here is this is where we're at. It's nice from a team's perspective. It's nice for us to be invited to come in initially, and then also to be able to come and what I'm thinking, put a fork, let's get this thing done, right, and that's really our goal. Our last will be next Friday, so our goal is to have things as good a shape as possible, safe as possible, and that you can get back onto your mountain, recreate, take a look at the damage, get ready for winter, and get ready for hunting season and all of those things. That is definitely our goal for you. As you can tell, Sure, you betcha. Sorry, you bet. As you can tell, this is still very much an interagency operation, and that is how we're going to continue this process all the way through. So the um, the work that we're doing has got some real good long-term effects. Going to get you back to as good as to normal as possible. It's the new normal with what Mother Nature has left us with that mountain. But that's what we're here to do: get you into that good spot. And we will continue the public meetings so that you know exactly where we're at through this process, and we're hoping that we can hit that target. We're doing everything possible to make that target so that you'll be close to back to normal for next Friday. So thank you again for your patience. We know this has disrupted your life, absolutely disrupted your life. So we really appreciate your support and your patience. And we'll stay tuned for us to continue to plug away. Thanks again.
Thank you, Brett. All right, so this is going to be the question portion for the evening. So with this, we will have some mic runners. Please wait until you have a mic in your hand before you ask your question, as this is being broadcast online. That allows everyone in attendance to hear. With that, we'll open up the room to you.
With the restrictions and do lifting so we can go in, are we going to have any restrictions? Are we wide open to go do what we want to do? What's that?
So what you'll receive is 2 placards. So you get 2 placards per parcel, per property. If you own multiple properties, you're still only going to get 2. Okay, because what we don't want is 500 vehicles up and down the roads while you guys are, because they're still going to be working in some of those areas. And so what it's going to do is it's going to be color coded to what the map showed. And so you're restricted to that area that your property is in. So, if you're in Bagley or the guard station or Maggleby's, you can't go run down to Monroe Meadows, see what it looks like. You can't, you have to be in your area. So it doesn't give you access to the whole mountain, but it gives you access to your portion of the mountain. Yes. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can come and go if you want to go up every morning and come down every night. If you want to go stay for a week, go stay for a week. That's up to you guys. So
Thank you.
If we, when we get into our properties and we do see some smoke on either our own property or on forest ground, do you want us to report that? Or at this point, since it's in the interior, that it doesn't really matter?
Yes, please do. That way we can check it, make sure it's not going to punk out. If it's close to a potential line, we'll make sure and double check and make sure that's good. So yeah, please do report what you see. If you see a hazard tree that we may have missed, that you're concerned about too, also let us know. So that would be the public information number, Mary, right? Would that be the best? Okay, and okay, we'll get you that now. Oh, and Jason brings up that after we leave, the forest, the state, and the BLM are all going to continue to monitor this fire until you've got snow, on the ground. So it's not going to be like we're done and everybody packs up and leaves. They're going to be watching it all the time. So after then, depending on where you think you see some smoke or there's anything that's close to the line, you just reach out to that agency and they'll take care of it for you.
Thank you. In the red.
Is the power restored? Like we had several power boxes, I don't know what they're called, but that were pretty much melted into the ground. Has that all been fixed and restored?
Yeah, what we were told by the power companies is that there is power restored to all the properties with the exception of the structures that were lost. Those are shut down, and they won't be restored until something is rebuilt. But when we had a meeting with the power companies yesterday, that was the statement that was made by those folks.
Thank you.
On the forest property could be lifted. I'm just wondering, is that going to be something that maybe going to take off from Annabelle and go through the Big Lake area to get to the guard station? That we use that property all the time. I'm just wondering, when would that be something that would be open?
Yeah, so we don't plan to lift it entirely. So our plan is to shrink it. So it won't be as big as it is currently, but certainly the portions within the fire perimeter on the national forest will continue to stay closed. With the exception of, the private in holdings. And as they talked about, the various landowners will have the different colored placards, and that'll give you access to your portion of the mountain, but you won't have access to just go wherever you want. And then, everything within the fire perimeter area, is still going to be closed to the general public. Right now, a lot of the forest closure goes to the forest boundary. And we're going to try to suck that in and make it as small as we can and get it as close to the fire footprint size as we can. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Seating. Can we help? Do you have seat available for distribution?
Yeah, 73,000 acres. That's a lot of seed. Now, we're probably not going to reseed every single acre. There's a lot of acres up there that's just going to recover quickly on its own. A lot of these aspen areas actually respond really well to fire. And I was actually at Monroe Canyon just on Monday and saw a lot of aspen sprouts, this tall, growing really well. Other areas where you maybe had more oak, that responds really well to fire. But then in the other areas that maybe in the lower elevation areas where you had more cheatgrass or more sagebrush, those areas will definitely want to reseed. And so it's going to be a mix. But even with that, yeah, there's going to be, several thousand acres that are going to need to be reseeded. That reseeding is, it's the number that I heard actually just the other day from one of our divisional wildlife resource specialists is somewhere between $9 to $12 an acre to purchase the seed and then hire the pilot basically to either fly it on with helicopter or sometimes even do an fixed wing aircraft and they'll drive over the top and drop that seed. And so we anticipate it's going to be several $100,000, if not maybe even a couple $1,000,000 to reseed everything that needs to be reseeded. So if you can help.
For us to be able to assist with reseeding our fountain
Yeah.
that was burned, we want to help. That's
Yeah,
what
so
he's
we're,
trying to ask.
I mean, unless you want to bring a lot of money to the table and help us pay for that, that's an option. But we and the easiest and the cheapest way to do it is aircraft. So 73,000 acres. If you try to seed that by hand, we'd be here all for the rest of our lives. So aircraft is the easiest, quickest, most efficient way to do it. We're already talking with the seed companies, getting seed ordered, and in place, recognizing that the order that we put in is going to be a big order. And so they're reaching out and finding available sources and pulling that seed in. The state's got a seed warehouse up in Ephraim that we order most of our seed from. And so there's already a lot of work going on behind the scenes to be able to pull that together and so we can pull it off.
Private landowners need to have access and get up there on their property any more than the general public. Why do they need to see things before we do? And can't you treat us the same? It sounds like you're going to give private landowners the run of the mountain. So why do private landowners need to be in there before everyone else?
So private landowners have private property rights that go along with their land. And so, yes, they have a right to get into their property. The forest wants to, keep the forest closed. That's going to keep general public out. But it can't necessarily keep the private landowners out because they do have rights that go along with that.
Thank you. Let's take another one from online.
This is a repopulation question. Why is the repopulation of big lakes pushed back?
So the repopulation of big lakes is being pushed back because of the amount of road repair we need to do through here. Not so much road repair, but I mean hazard tree reduction. So for Big Lake, this is on our docket. We've got more equipment coming, but we want to make sure that we have those hazards reduced as much as we can. Crews are down here, and the priority is we split the crews up. So we got a group working this way, we got a group of heavy equipment working this way, and then I got more equipment coming. They're on order, and we're going to start them up here so we can start focusing, and then we will merge everything together. So we've got some areas identified. We're just trying to cover everything as we can. So Big Lake is one of the last ones just because the amount of work that's there. So we're trying to get the small stuff first to get these repopulated and then focus up there. As we get the equipment, we're putting it in there.
Thank you. Any last questions? All right. Well, thank you for welcoming us back into your community. Our next meeting is scheduled for 7:30 p.m. in this room on Saturday. We'll be around to answer any additional questions you have following this. Thank you and have a good night.